Hello, Canucks fans. Welcome back to an episode of Canucks Conversation brought to you by Bet365. We're coming to you from the Pacific Toyota Dealer Studios. Visit shoptoyota.ca or visit your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. My name is Dave Rodrelli. I am joined by Harman Dial. We got a big show today. We've got Dave Hall joining the show. It's a Canucks game day, so we're going to talk Canucks versus Blackhawks. Lots to get to today. Harm, how you feeling?
Good. I'm excited to see if the Canucks can build on a better performance that they put up against the Predators, where not just results, but yesterday we mentioned how encouraging it was that finally at 5-on-5, they were able to control play and a rare victory where you weren't reliant on Thatcher Demko to steal the show or for Kiefer Sherwood to single-handedly save that game. It was more of a complete team effort. Obviously, Quinn Hughes coming back into the lineup was a big reason why that happened, and especially now that it sounds like Conor Garland is likely to draw in tonight, another big boost for them against the Blackhawks team that has been a little bit more competitive this year for sure.
100% they have been. It's going to be an interesting one tonight. Kevin Lankinen gets the start and goal against his former team. Connor Bedard, of course, visiting his future team. Speaking of Connors, Conor Garland returns to the lineup tonight. There were no line rushes at morning skate today, so we don't really know where he's going to skate. After morning skate, Brett McLean, who did media today, didn't even say he knew who was coming out of the lineup yet. We'd assume it's Mackenzie McEachern. We'll see. But Conor Garland, and like I said yesterday, we had this conversation on the show. We assume he's going to skate back with Elias Pettersson, but no line rushes, so we don't know just yet. We'll find out tonight. Regardless of where he's playing, Conor Garland means a lot to this team.
I'd argue that until Elias Pettersson gets back to the level that he was at 2 years ago, Conor Garland is the best forward on this team.
Oh, he has been this year.
Oh, and not just this year, just even going back to last year. It's not just these 14 games. I just think flat out, unless Pettersson gets back offensively to the level that he was at 2 years ago, that Conor Garland is the best forward on this team, which on one hand tells you that you don't have a very good forward group because most teams have more established stars further up the lineup, especially teams that have hopes of making the playoffs. But I also think it's a nod to how Garland has stepped into a bigger role over these last couple of seasons. I mean, in the 2023-24 campaign, when he was such a valuable player, this is a guy that was averaging middle six ice time. Whereas now he's consistently getting over 20 minutes a night, and his special teams value has grown tremendously. A couple of weeks ago, we spoke at length about the splits of Vancouver's power play results on the first unit when Conor Garland is on that unit versus anybody else. I was checking back on it yesterday. I think the first unit has played 21 minutes without Conor Garland on PP1, and they've only scored one goal in that time and have allowed one against. So they're neutral. Whereas Conor Garland on that first unit, they've scored 6 goals, and their shot and chance rate just spikes significantly. So he's been valuable there. He's moved up into a PK1 role, and considering how much the Canucks penalty kill has struggled, I don't think Garland's going to single-handedly fix that, obviously, but he'll help with how smart he is at pressuring the top. And just the speed, the energy, the play driving. Again, I think he's more important to the team right now than Elias Pettersson, especially when you look at Pettersson playing his best hockey. That came once Garland was bumped up to play on Pettersson's line.
I don't think that's a hot take at all, Harm. I think you're bang on. He's going to be a big boost to this lineup everywhere in the lineup. Like you said, all situations, he's going to be really important for them. I want to talk about the 3-on-3 overtime stuff. I wrote about it at Canucks Army. Literally, it went out 5 minutes before the show, so we'll get to it, I think, in anyone else. Dave Hall's going to join the show in a moment here. But before that, I want to get to this comment from Scott, who said, I met Quads last week at the Rangers game. Gotta say, he's taller than I thought he was. How tall do people think I am? What's going on here? Like,
how much did you pay Scott to write that comment? Is the real question.
I didn't. You want to know what Scott actually said when I met him? I was standing in line at Carve, which if you ever want to find me, folks, if you ever want to find me at a Canucks game and I'm not in the press box, it'll be at if you stay at the Carve by the Steamers Hot Dogs on the lower concourse, that's where I'll be around 6:30 every game night. 6:20, 6:15. You can find me there. I'm always there. I love me a carb sandwich. Anyways, I'm getting a little off topic. Karn said, we all think you're 3 feet tall. Brad said 5'7". No. Amina said 6 feet, then 5'4". We've got a wide range there. No,
5'4"
somewhere
is
in between
crazy.
There. 5'4", yeah. Like who? Why? Anyways, it's because you know what it is. I used to do all those promotional shoots with Faber. That's why. And that dude is like 6'4", 6'5". Anyway,
Faber makes NHL players look small.
I know.
Besides Tyler Myers.
Yeah, besides Tyler Myers. It's funny that Myers is the only player that Faber has to look up to. But yeah, no, I'm like 5'8", 5'9" on a good day. In my shoes, I'm 5'9", So anyway, what Scott actually said to me, it was funny. I was standing in the carve line and he came up to me. He's like, how about them Mariners? And I was like, all right. So this guy listens to the show. And then, yeah, thank him for listening to the show. He said he watches every episode, which I appreciate. And Scott's in the chat today. Brad said it looks like Quads has his chair raised up to the top setting. That's enough. Let's get to Dave Hall, who's brought to you by our friends over at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. You can skip the line and not have to pay cover on game nights if you're wearing the home team's gear. And of course, there's also the game day specials at Greta, including $3.33 off select food items, $3.33 on select drinks, and more. With the arcade, bar, and street food menu, Greta's a great spot. Make it your spot to watch the next game. Dave Hall joins us now. Prospect expert over at CanucksArmy.com, the author of Blackfish every week. Dave, I'm assuming you haven't been enjoying Abbotsford Canucks hockey lately.
No, it's been brutal. It's it's been a tough to get through those games, but we'll get through them.
In good news, we have some good news to report. Alexei Medvedev, you and I called it. Well, you were with me when I was calling it, that Alexei Medvedev is the truth. Off to an awesome start with the London Knights so far this season.
Yeah, and I'm glad too, because yes, you are right. I was there present. So, by association, I was there to, the crazy claims that you were making. But no, he's been unreal. I try not to get too high on prospects this early, but I got to say, like, he so far through 8 games, he's been the real deal. He's only letting 15 goals, which is tops among all starters in the OHL. Leads, save percentage, goals against. He's just been unreal. So it's been a nice start, and heck, they could have the future in between the pipes there. So
it's funny because we spent so much time in preseason talking about Villander needing some time and how we weren't concerned about, all right, he doesn't quite look NHL ready yet. Yet really early into the season, thrust into playing regular NHL minutes because of the number of injuries that Vancouver has suffered, and actually looking much better than expected, surprising in a positive way. What have you seen from him so far in the NHL?
Well, the one nice thing is we knew, even if we didn't think he was ready, we knew the skating was going to fit in right away. Like, that's just something that stands out right away. And if you can skate in the league, it's gonna benefit you. And one thing I've really liked about his game, and I noticed this in Abbotsford as well. Like, his first weekend, he was a little bit off. It just seemed like he was trying a little too much. And by week 2 already, he was simplifying his game and just sticking to what he's good at, not trying to like force too many plays, and just keeping it simple. And I feel like that's when he's playing his best game. And so right now, I think it's a mixture of both. I think the skating is just, we saw his assist. Obviously, it didn't showcase much of his playmaking ability. It was a bit lucky to even pop out to Besser there. But, it just kind of shows the composure he has right now, with his skating, willing to go to the wide side and, create a play there. So I think overall, his skating is going to be there. Obviously, we've seen advanced statistic wise, he's been pretty much a darling right now, which is, something that is great to see. We don't have a lot of access to those numbers in the NCAA or even AHL. So I'd be curious to see how his numbers looked in the other leagues. But yeah, so far so good. And it's great for him, not so great for Abbotsford.
Okay. What's gone wrong for Abbotsford? Like, obviously we're talking about, having no fun, but like, what's the actual story there? What's going on in Abbotsford right now?
Oh, sorry. I got a cat. Sorry. I just got to do cat. You walked up in the background there. It's been, I mean, it's a combination of a few things. It's a combination of, not bringing in guys in the offseason. We saw Tristan Nielsen make his NHL debut last night. So for whatever reason, they don't bring guys like that back. It's been a mixture of injuries, not only to Vancouver, but also their own guys, Guillaume Brisebois, Jet Wu, veteran experienced members on that back end. Oh boy, this guy, he was locked up. Or she was locked up.
Pets are welcome. Pets are welcome on this show. That's been established. Don't worry.
Perfect. So experienced blue liners like that are out of the lineup, and then of course there's 9 injuries up in Vancouver, so that just doesn't help. So right now you got guys that are probably going to play middle 6 at best on a good night, playing top line minutes right now in Abbotsford. So it's just all in all, but the big one has been on the back end. There's guys that should be playing in Kalamazoo right now that are playing heavy minutes. Like we've seen Soria Minio and Jimmy Schultz play upwards of 28 minutes, 27 minutes a night. So it's been one of those things where it's great for a guy like Soria Minio who was playing third line minutes before the mass rush of call ups, and now he's playing 27 minutes in every single scenario possible. So it's just been a mixture of everything. Eventually it was going to slide off the rails, and it has. So
how has Minio looked in that increased workload? We've spoken in the past with you about how he's an under the radar prospect to keep an eye on because he's got the size, defended well in Seattle, and also seemed to improve his puck skills after he got drafted and elevated into a bigger role on that on that Seattle team. What have you seen from him as he transitions from junior hockey to the AHL, which is usually a pretty significant jump?
Yeah, and for a smaller set defenseman, he's not huge, and that's even something that in the past when I've talked to him, he's alluded to. He's quite aware. He snuck into a game a couple years back, and he kind of laughed about it every time when I talk to him, and he just says, "Yeah, size is definitely something I'm going to have to focus on and getting a little bit bigger." And so that was going to be my biggest worry, and I was happy that he was starting out at just a third pairing role, but it seemed like every single game, even before the rush of call-ups, he was just getting more and more comfortable and less and less of a standout in a bad way. Like I was actually quite impressed with him, and now that he's taken on this role, he's fit right in. He's getting a lot more puck touches. Now we're seeing that offensive game. Before, when at the starting of the season, it was just a lot of just a very simple game, focusing on that defense, not making mistakes as you would expect from a 20-year-old rookie. But now that he's kind of been handed the keys, we're starting to see that shot that we grew to love in the WHL. He's now got 2 goals. I mean, he's one of the only goal scorers they've had in the last couple of games here, and so he's just getting a lot more puck touches. And that's something that he's alluded to as well, is just, he's getting more comfortable. And just so far, for me, the big difference is I've just been impressed with the fact that his IQ has really helped him in the sense that his size doesn't seem to matter too much right now. So overall, it's been a fantastic debut. I think, there hasn't been many. I think it's easy the story of Abbotsford this year.
To quickly follow up on that, I'm curious. I mean, it's fascinating to me that you mentioned the size element because, and maybe this is part of the difference of when you watch guys in junior and in college, they can look differently. Where, like, I remember watching Tom Villander in college and then seeing him in person, it was like, oh, he's smaller than I thought.
Yeah,
he was. With Minio, when you watch him in junior, especially maybe it's because of the physical edge that he plays with. The idea that I had was, oh, he actually seems like he's a pretty strong guy. So it's interesting to hear you say that he feels that he has a size disadvantage, and despite that has actually been able to make an impact anyway, because you would think for a player like that who has that high compete level, the motor level, that as he then grows older and does fill out like a man, that it'll only help his defensive game.
Yeah, you're bang on, and you are right. He plays with more of an edge that I think you'll see from most people. I remember even in a development camp scenario, he's breaking a stick over guys' shin pads just in a little like nothing skirmish, right? And so it's just embedded in him. He's got that just that motor that just wants to compete, and so I think that's going to take him far. But yeah, he doesn't stand out as a huge defender, but his skating, and Manny Malhotra even alluded to it this week of just how impressive. He might not be Tom Villander type skating, but his skating is strong enough that he's going to get himself out of pinches often, just based on his feet alone. So yeah, I can't say enough good things about how his season's gone in a pretty bad scenario, to be quite honest.
Dave, talk to me about the Abbey goalies here. I see 5 starts for Yuri Patera and 3 for Ty Young and 3 for Nikita Tolopilo. Like you and I, we did our Abbotsford Canucks preview, and I think you agreed with me that it was basically going to be, okay, you split Tolopilo, you split Young, and whatever's left over, Yuri Patera gets those. But Yuri Patera coming for the crown, 5 starts so far on the year.
Yeah, and he's looked really good too. He was actually, I believe, he had the Play of the Week with one of his saves this weekend in the American League. So he's been phenomenal. And I got to say, I was a little surprised as well. They're running the 3-man rotation. Unfortunately, Nikita Tolopilo appears to be injured. He did injure himself on the banner raising night, and he hasn't been back since. So right now it's Patera and Young, but Patera's been quietly very, very strong. I mean, at this point, I've said this in Blackfish as well, whether it comes to goalies or whether it comes to plus minus, I wouldn't look too much in the stats because the stats aren't going to be good right now, and especially for the goalies. But the goalies have played much better than their stats are going to, and that includes Ty Young, whose stats right now are just horrific. I believe his goals against might be in the 4s right now. So I've really liked Patera. Young has played well. I have noticed, especially in his last game, like there was a lot of rebounds, especially on pucks that, I think should be soaked up quite easily, have kind of been popping out a little bit, and they led to quite a few direct goals in his last game against Henderson. That's something that I noticed even from last year. We saw a lot of his first shots go in the net or just kind of squeakers here and there. But so far, they've been phenomenal. They've been kind of hung out to dry here. Hopefully, Nikita Tolopilo isn't too serious. So would love to get an update at some point on his status at some point. But we all know how that goes.
Dave, where are you at with Victor Mancini? He had a standout preseason, but it was interesting where he did a lot of the loud, flashy stuff that got fans excited, yet you could hear Adam Foote tempering expectations. And clearly the coaching staff wanted to see him iron out some of the details of his game before he'd be trusted for regular NHL duties. He got into the lineup for 5 games, and it's interesting. He played just over 15 minutes, healthy amount of ice time in his season debut against St. Louis in early October. But then after that, in 3 of his next 4 games, he was below 10 minutes of ice time. He then got hurt. But it really seems as if he still is in a spot where he hasn't found Adam Foote's trust yet. And it's interesting to, compare all the athletic gifts that he has as a 6'3" presence who can also skate the puck really well and rush it. Where are you at? What's the disconnect between we look at Mancini and the physical tools are really promising, and yet there still seems to be work for him to do to become an everyday NHL player?
I think it's just for him, I just think it's a less is more kind of situation. I just think he gets a little overzealous in his play. Like, he makes a nice play and he seems to get a little excited. And this is something that I noticed. I even touched on earlier with Tom Wielander. Like, I think when they simplify their game, that's when they're going to be at their best. And I think Victor Mancini is a perfect case of that, of just, he makes a nice play or he gets a point and he just gets a little excited and he starts getting a little careless in all 3 zones. And especially at the AHL level, you can get away with stuff like that. I used to joke last year about the AHL Eric Brandstrom, right? He's, guys like that can get away with stuff like that, the AHL, but in the NHL, you got to make sure that you're playing a composed game in all 3 zones at all times. And right now, I think he's just kind of caught in the middle of just trying to figure out where that fine line is in his game. So personally, I think the same thing with Tom Wielander as well. Like, they both just need to find the less is more kind of scenario where if you just simplify that game and try not to do too much out there and just stick to the role that you have on the team, that's where you're gonna be best.
Dave, we've got a few questions in here about Vilmer Ulrichsen. How's he been so far?
He's been fine. He hasn't, he finally got his first goal. He was out of the lineup. I believe, this is me kind of assuming, I don't have it confirmed, but I think he might have been sick. So that's why he was out of the lineup, but he's been fine. He's obviously, physically mature. Like, he stands out right away. He's an absolute beast. You guys were laughing before about Faber, Tyler Myler as being the only person that he stands up to, but Vilmer Ulrichsen, I'm 6'2" and I'm looking up like him as, a 36-year-old man. So, he's an absolute beast, but, as we kind of expected, he's, hasn't been a huge difference maker on the offensive. He's never really been that. And so for him, I just think, it's encouraging. He's getting a little bit more minutes. He's seeing power play time, with all these injuries, he's actually getting some top 6 minutes. So It's been okay. I wouldn't say he's blown anything off the charts, but I just think he's, steady as she goes as a 20-year-old rookie playing in his first American League games with not too much to work with, right? So so far it's been okay, I'd say, and almost kind of what I expected. So
Braden Coots, 7 points in 6 games since going back to the WHL. How dominant has he looked at that level? Because I think that's the expectation now for Coots. Is he was good in his draft year, just slightly over the point per game mark on a Thunderbirds team that really didn't have a lot of talent around him. And then he has this awesome training camp of preseason. The expectations after that camp of preseason are probably a little bit higher. And you're hoping that it's tough because on one hand, he is still playing on a pretty terrible team. So statistics might not pop. But ideally, this is a year where he breaks out and gets closer to the 1.5, 1.6, 1.7 points per game kind of mark. What have you seen from him so far in the WHL?
He's all over the ice. For stat watchers, he's got 7 points in 6 games. So he's over a point per game, but he could be so far above that. He's really all over the ice. There's no PDO in the WHL, but if there was, he'd probably be pretty high. He's hit posts, he's getting lots of shots and they're just not going in for him. So he's creating his chances. I mean, he's single-handedly creating chances, which is what you want to see. Even his goal that he scored on Halloween, he starts the whole play from his own zone and goes all the way down and, leaves the defender completely flat-footed to score. So overall, it's basically everything you want to see. He's winning his draws. I believe he's 56% of his draws, which included like an 8 for 13 against the Saskatoon Blades a couple nights ago. So he's really doing everything that you really hope to see. As you mentioned, Seattle's not going to be great this year. So, he probably won't hit 2 points a game, but he's driving play on his own, and he's kind of come as advertised and everything we could hope for. So much to the point where that I believe that, if you talked to me 2 months ago, I would call him a very big long shot to make it in the World Juniors this year at Canada. But, with the way that he plays and, given his past experience as captain and now some NHL experience to lean on, we might be talking about an 18-year-old that slides in the back door as someone who actually makes this Team Canada lineup come December. So overall, it's been as expected. I've been very impressed with Braden Coots. He's just all over the ice. His skating is just so he's a one-man entry. And so I think this year is the year we might see some points come his way. So.
Last one for me, and I'll leave this open-ended. Is there a prospect we haven't talked about, or just in general, a young player in the organization who's caught your eye that you really want to discuss?
I to be honest, I think just right now, this is going to be open. This is going to be a bit because there's a few, to be honest. I could go on for days, but I really like a lot of the OHL kids right now. I think they're doing a lot of good stuff. Like a guy like Gabe Sherratt, who he's NHL potential is still up in the air, but he's been kind of given top line minutes here in Brampton, and he kind of plays that in your face. He's a bit of a prick on the ice, which you like to see. I mean that in the most respectful way possible. He's a nose to the grindstone kind of player, and now he's showcasing that he's got a nice shot and can put the puck in the net. So a guy like him, you got Kieran Dervin, who he's a bit of a different style player. He doesn't play that hard-nosed game like Gabe Sherratt, but he's now the leading scorer on Kingston Frontenac's, and so he was a guy that we didn't know too much about, considering he had played high school hockey up to that point, and he's come into the OHL and he's really brought it. So far, I really like what all the OHL players are doing. That includes Medvedev, that includes Patterson. I just think it's a really healthy. They're in a really healthy spot, and I got to say, just in general, it's the exact opposite of the 2024 draft, where I pretty much like every single pick from this past draft. I just think they're all, whether they play NHL games or not, remains to be seen. I just think for where they were picked, I think they're a good run for their money. So
Walk in the chat said, when do I get my Kieran Turvin black skate jersey?
I would buy Wilson Bjork jersey first.
Oh, Wilson Bjork. I like it.
He's injured right now, but so he's not at the, he won't be at the Five Nations for Sweden, but he's another guy that he could be on the World Juniors for Sweden this year. So
last one for me. Did the kids have to convince you to get a cat?
Yes and no. Yeah. For the most part, yeah. But she's actually been pretty cool. I've had a lot of cats in my life back in the day, and I refused to get one. But she's been pretty good. She hasn't peed on anything, which is the big thing.
I love it.
Nothing worse than the smell. So,
Dave, thanks for doing this, man. We appreciate it. We'll get you back on soon. Apologies. It had been a while since we chatted with you, but really appreciate you taking the time.
Abbotsford's on an 8-game losing streak, so I didn't expect to come on that much. So I just appreciate the opportunity.
Hey, win or lose, we like your updates. So thank you, Dave. Appreciate it.
Hey, cheers, boys. Nice to see you.
There he is. Dave Hall. Read his work, CanucksArmy.com. And of course, every Tuesday, Blackfish goes out, and it is the best weekly. I was going back and forth on this. Is it the only, do you guys do anything at The Athletic, like a weekly update on prospects? No. Okay, I don't think anyone else does either. So I keep saying, it's the best. It's the only one. So it's the best. It's the best.
It's
and it's
both.
The only one. Yeah, it's both. Exactly. All right, thanks to Dave Hall. All right. All right, we got some heaters in anyone else, which is pretty funny. I don't know if we're going to get to all of these, but some interesting ones in anyone else. But let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends over at Pacific Toyota Dealers and the Toyota Prius plug-in hybrid, a no-compromise approach to electric vehicles that offers the best of both worlds. Drive up to 72 kilometers on the battery alone, seamlessly transition from electric mode to the gas engine for a combined range of 962 kilometers. There's no sacrifices when it comes to horsepower or style with its sleek, low, and wide exterior and sophisticated interior. It's loaded with tech that's actually easy to use. Plug in to recharge at home or at one of the over 2,000 public charging stations in BC alone. And now you can lease a 2025 Prius plug-in hybrid SE from $99 weekly at 3.49% APR for 64 months with $3,600 down. And it includes a $3,000 discount. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Pacific Toyota dealer today. All right.
Quickly, one thing I wanted to mention because it's relevant to the Pacific Division. The Ducks dummied the Panthers last night. They're now 8-3-1. I remember after about the first week of the season, we had this mini conversation where I brought up, hey, keep an eye on the Ducks, because I think in the offseason, the way I viewed Anaheim was I expect them to take a significant step now that Greg Cronin is gone, and I thought he was suppressing a lot of their young skill guys from really being able to hit their potential. But I also thought, man, they have a lot of ground to make up for in terms of actually controlling 5-on-5 play before, to get to the point where they can make the playoffs. And I thought, all right, they're a year away, more realistically, from being a playoff team. However, if everything breaks right, they could maybe get into the playoff conversation. So far, everything is breaking right. And this isn't just a fluky, they're getting lucky kind of thing. Their young talent looks unbelievable. Leo Carlson looks like a star. Cutter Gauthier is up to 10 goals. They lead the league in goals scored per game. And it's not just, they got a PDO bender going on right now. You watch them play, and they are so skilled. They are so fast. The way they connect plays up the ice, they have an offensive gear that the Canucks can't dream of hitting right now, even when the Canucks are fully healthy. And this is a key part, right? Their hot start in the beginning, I remember looking at it and going, all right, this is interesting, but they're beating some weaker teams here. But lately, their schedule has picked up where they've beaten Florida twice since late October. And we talked about the gauntlet of contenders that the Canucks were going to go through in mid-November. That's what the Ducks are going through right now, where, they beat Florida twice. Earlier this week, they beat the Devils 4-1. Now they've got Dallas, Vegas, Winnipeg, and Colorado coming up. And they're positioned well right now. So keep an eye on them over the next few games. If they survive against this gauntlet of contenders, the Ducks, I will say the Ducks have officially arrived as a playoff caliber team.
They're legit. If they do that, they're legit. And would we be surprised if they do it? No, we wouldn't. I 100% agree with you. And I would like to point out, I called it yesterday during the Bet365 bet of the day. Called it, said Anaheim Ducks, hammered that money line. I don't know why they're still so underrated. They were heavy underdogs at home last night, and they dummied the Florida Panthers. I wanted to mention this as well about the Ducks. 4th most shots per game so far this year. I don't know what the numbers were last year, and I'm going to look it up right now, so I actually have it, but 4th most in the league this year, and they were, Canucks were second last. Where did the Ducks? Okay, Ducks were 24th in the league last year in shots per game. 23rd last year.
Yeah, and I think a big part of this is obviously coaching and also their power play going from 32nd in league last year to league average. And they got 2 again on the man advantage against the Panthers last night. That's where the Chris Kreider acquisition has really worked out for them better than I think a lot of people, myself included, expected. Now we'll see, right? This isn't saying, oh, they're going to be a playoff team for sure, because they're still young and inexperienced, so they give up a lot defensively. But they're also just one of the most entertaining teams in hockey because they play that track meet style of game. And we'll see, right? Are they more the Columbus Blue Jackets of last year, where they create tons of offensive looks? They're so high scoring, but they also give up so much and narrowly end up missing the playoffs? Or are they the Montreal Canadiens of last year, where they're able to, they give up a lot defensively, but their goaltending is still pretty solid and they've got enough to still make the playoffs? That's a team to keep an eye on, and they're just so fun to watch. I mean, it's been a while since you could say that about the Anaheim Ducks.
Oh, we got 2 here that I want to get to. Brad asked, where are the Flyers on the shots per game list? They're 31st in the league under Rick Tocchet right now, which I believe is where the Canucks were last year. Were they not 31st in the league?
I don't know off the top of my head, but
I'm going to get it. Hang on.
They're also 7-5-1. So this low event style, you can make fun of it all you want.
Canucks were second last. Yep. Canucks were second last year, and that's where the Flyers are right now. But back to the Ducks. This was a question from Mark said, is Dostal the real deal? Look, you've been on the show long enough. You know I've been talking about Lukas Dostal as the real deal for a while. Like, Dostal is a great goalie. That's the thing. You talk about the Blue Jackets of last year. They didn't get the goaltending, man. Like, goaltending was a big story for the Blue Jackets last year. Now, had they called up Jet Greaves 2 weeks earlier than they actually did, I think they would have made the playoffs, that Blue Jackets team. I'm a big Jet Greaves guy. But I think Dostal is the real deal. So I just want to make sure 100%. I get that in there as well.
I think he's a top 10 goaltender in the NHL. Now, towards the back end of that, not saying he's a top 5 goaltender.
Yep.
But consistently, his goals saved above expected metrics have been terrific. And again, as fun and amazing as the Ducks are offensively, they some nights have no clue how to defend in front of him. Like, you see the way they defend the front of the net, you see some of the passes that they allow, and you're like, geez, you feel a little bit bad for Dostal, but that's what he's paid a lot of money on this new extension to do. And so long as he's able to hold up his end of the bargain, they're gonna stay competitive and be in this race.
There was another one I wanted to get to about the
Put it this way, I flat out like their playoff chances better than the Canucks right now.
Well, yeah. I mean, we were kind of waiting to see when they would emerge, and I think they're there. And this is the other thing. Conversation, I found it. Conversation said this. Craziest thing about the Ducks is they still have a whole bunch in the pipeline. They could flip it to be great instantly. Roger McQueen, awesome name. That's a guy I want the Canucks to trade for, I'll tell you that. But those guys are coming. Like, they're going to get better. And unfortunately, this naturally goes into a conversation about how the Canucks probably need to rebuild, because if you can't compete in your own division and you get lapped by teams like the Montreal Canadiens, this is a prime example. I know it's a little different, but 2021 Stanley Cup final, whatever it was, Stanley Cup final, they go with an aggressive rebuild and they're back to being one of the top teams. So, and I know they weren't a top team, quote unquote, that year they got to Stanley Cup final. And I know people hearing that are going to say, oh, Stanley Cup final, you're a top team. I get that. But standings wise, they weren't a top team that year. They weren't, it was a weird
Cinderella run.
Yeah, it was a Cinderella run. It wasn't like they were building for all these years. It was, they got there, realized, okay, we aren't going to be able to keep this up. They go through an aggressive rebuild and they're at the top now. The Anaheim Ducks, same sort of deal. They go through a rebuild and there were painful years. A
lot of painful years.
A lot of very painful years, but you reap the rewards. And really, also, let's say this, Harm. The Anaheim Ducks also, their rebuild was delayed because they had an awful coach.
Yeah.
Like they could have done this last year with a better coach.
Yeah, and maybe they don't. I don't think they would have made the playoffs last year,
Yeah.
but at least they at least would have been. You would have seen their young players take steps sooner, and it would have been a gradual kind of build. And the thing too is when we say, "Oh, the Ducks went through a lot of pain and this was a long rebuild," well, the Canucks retooling over the last decade have also been through a lot of pain.
Yeah,
The difference now is that you look at the Ducks for the next 5 to 10 years with this core, and they've got a really bright future. Whereas when you look at the Canucks, and I'm sure we'll have a longer conversation about this one day, but what's the path for them to actually contend for a cup? I feel like we're so obsessed with this idea of the playoff race and making the playoffs. And okay, but the ultimate goal is to contend for a championship.
Yeah, but it's not, man. It's not.
It should be though. Like that's what we should demand out of this team and this organization. And I don't see a path for that. Even if the stars align and they make the playoffs this year, and even though you have Quinn Hughes, you've had Quinn Hughes for so many years, right? Like having one superstar isn't enough to say, well, we got this guy. That's our hope for a championship team one day. It just feels like the Canucks are so far away from actually being in the league's upper class of, 5, 6, 7 teams that can contend for a cup. And again, I'm not saying the Ducks are anywhere near being cup contenders, but they're a fun, exciting team now that could make the playoffs. And 2 or 3 years from now, it's possible they could follow the Montreal trajectory and eventually get there. Whereas I don't see a realistic path for that with this Canucks team as they're currently positioned.
But they've sure gotten close a lot of these years, Harm. They've sure gotten close to the playoffs, that is, to the playoffs. All right. Cindy Wilhelm. Oh, Cindy. Okay. Attends all the watch parties. Not like Harmon would know that, but
I've seen her. Come on. I've been to some of the watch parties. You can't throw me under the bus like that.
She asked David and Harmon, what is up with the Rangers? Did you see the quote from JT Miller last night? It is no longer cute, was the quote from JT Miller. I didn't know it was ever cute. But yeah, the Rangers. They were a desperate team. We've known this. It hasn't been good for the Rangers to start this season.
Yeah. Mike Sullivan's tried to transform them into a lower event team. So they've improved a ton defensively, but can't manufacture offense. They're slow. They're old. And they frankly don't have a lot of depth. Look at that bottom 6 forward group and tell me that they're going to reliably chip in with offense. Look at the second and third pairs they have on defense and tell me that you're going to reliably win your minutes with those guys on the ice. Even your top 6 forward group, it's not, you can get away with having a weak bottom 6 if you've got an elite top 6, whereas the Rangers top 6 is decent, but it's nowhere near elite. And the other thing too is the Rangers have nice underlying numbers in terms of controlling play, but I think that's a little bit misleading. And Dom Lucian actually brought this up a couple of weeks ago, where Mike Sullivan led teams, especially during the latter stages of the Pittsburgh years, they'd control out of possession, and analytically they would create some shots and chances, but their finishing ability pretty consistently trail those underlying numbers. So it's not as simple as, oh, their play controlling metrics are decent, so therefore the offense has to improve. That's not necessarily the case, because we've seen with Mike Sullivan coach teams in the past, when they don't have a lot of skill, they might possess the puck and spend time in the offensive zone, but it doesn't always actually lead to bottom line offense.
I wanted to point this out as well, because we talked about it yesterday with the Boston Bruins. We're going to talk Bruins in a second. The 500 points percentage for the Rangers, identical to the Canucks. Just pointing that out.
They're 2 mid teams. They're both mid.
But the Rangers are healthy. Like that's the other
for sure
thing. The Rangers are healthy.
But also, like we're talking about healthy, is Filipino going to come back this year? And if he does come back, how many games is Filipino going to play this year?
Yep.
That was the big one to me, right? Where before the season started, I told you if Filipino and Thatcher Demko stay healthy and play up to their potential, I see the case for them being a playoff team. If those two things don't happen, I don't think this team has enough. And not to say that it's impossible for them to make the playoffs. They're obviously still in the race, and now they're getting some bodies back. But, and again, I'm not drawing any hard conclusions about this team, but their center depth is really problematic, even when you get Teddy Bluger back. And we'll see. Even the number of games that Hughes and Garland missed, it's not like they missed all 14 of the games. Yeah. It's only been like 2-3 games each. So yes, they've been really banged up, more banged up than any other team in the NHL. But even when guys come back, there are still question marks with this team. And that's where, again, I'm hoping that what they did against Nashville, play controlling wise, is a sign of what's to come, because I think that's more of what this team needs in order to legitimately push and for us to have more confidence that, okay, they can make the postseason.
People were asking for updates, injury updates. Conor Garland returns to the lineup tonight. Teddy Bluger is looking to be a part of practice. They practice Friday in a non-contact jersey. Lekker-Mackey, same thing as Bluger. No updates on Forbert, Mancini, or Nils Höglander and Filipino. People keep asking for Filipino updates. I've said it, like we've heard, he's had some good days, but that's concussion protocol. You want to have the good days, then you hop on a bike, see how you feel after getting the heart rate up. Like, it's a long process. And for Filipino, like, he's not going to rush this. So even think back to last year, right? It was, okay, he's out, and then it was, hey, he's skating. Like, he's getting the heart rate up. He's back. It's a good sign for him. We don't have any update on Filipino. There's nothing coming, and they're not going to keep telling the media, he's still progressing and we're seeing how he's going. Like, that's what you assume is going on. So anyway, nothing on Hedl yet. And no further updates on those other guys that I mentioned as well. Forbert, Mancini, Höglander, no updates on them. There was another one that I wanted to get to. I forgot it. Oh yeah, there it is. Hachiroku. Why do people talk about Stamkos being traded out of Nashville, but not Ryan O'Reilly? Our friend Irfan Ghaffar and David Peñota on the Daily Faceoff Insider Show this morning said that Ryan O'Reilly is quietly drawing some interest and will likely get moved first, as he doesn't have a no-trade clause.
Well, Elliot Friedman, I believe, was talking about this last year closer to the deadline, where, if my memory serves me, his reporting was essentially saying the Predators are listening on O'Reilly, but it would take an offer that absolutely knocks their socks off for them to consider it. And that despite O'Reilly not having trade control, that they'd want to do right by the player and actually send him to a destination where he wants to go to. So the point being, we've actually been discussing O'Reilly since last year, and I would think that the Preds should listen to him and make him available closer to the deadline, if the season continues the way it has been for them so far.
Karn said, did y'all know Myers has the second highest carry entry percentage out of all NHL D-men, only behind Quinn Hughes? What do you make of Myers' newfound speed? Now, this is a funny thing. I trust Karn because he's in the chat every day, but like, people could just make up stats like that and I would read them on air.
Well, also, I would want to know, is that from Corey Schneider's tracking? Because not Corey Schneider, the goaltender, but Corey Schneider of all three zones tracking project.
I was confused for a second.
No. He's been tracking games for years. He actually tracked games with Eric Tulsky back like 12 years ago, but when Eric Tulsky was a blogger and not the GM of the Carolina Hurricanes. But anyway, if it's Corey's data, then the issue with that is he doesn't track every data. So it's a ridiculously small sample size, because it's not just, it's only been 14 games, but Corey doesn't track every Canucks game. So it's probably tracked by the time a season is done, it's useful because you get, let's say, 30 games worth of tracking. And because there's so many zone exits and zone entries in a game, that is a pretty good representation of player skill sets. But if we're talking 14 games, and I don't know how many Corey has tracked, but if he's tracked 4 or 5 of them, then that's a tiny sample size. And so therefore, I'm not really reading into Myers being that high on, carrying percentage, because he's going to fall as the sample size of tracking increases.
Disagree. Myers is awesome. Love seeing him.
I never said he wasn't awesome. He is awesome.
Well, what did I tell you? Remember what I told you and Tom? And you athletic boys laughed at me at training camp. You remember? I said this whole rush offense thing, you were going to see Myers jumping up in the rush all the time and trying to be the trigger man. You're going to see it. And it's happened. It's happened.
Okay. And let's look at his bottom line production. 3 points in 14
next
games.
Question.
Big trigger man out here. 1 goal in 14 games.
All right. Speaking of trigger man, I want to get to this Zadorov stuff and big defenseman that I really like. Zadorov, you saw this last night, right?
Yeah.
Zadorov and Matthew Schaefer. And by the way, Matthew Schaefer, my goodness, we all thought it was going to be a Demidov layup for the Calder. Matthew Schaefer's been phenomenal with the Islanders. Matthew Schaefer gets dumped behind the Boston net last night, cross-checked in the face by Zadorov. Zadorov kind of jumps him. Anders Lee jumps in. And is that JG Pajot in there? Oh, what's like a, oh my gosh. That was a pretty, you know what? That was a pretty solid guillotine. Pajot just jumped the ghillie there. Play that clip again, Jacob. That was an MMA move. Like, yeah. And sorry for those on the podcast, but wow, that is like some good, Greco-Roman style wrestling into the guillotine. That is very impressive. I didn't notice that the first time I watched it. Anyway, Zadorov jumped Matthew Schaefer, and what was your thoughts on this one?
I mean, it's what Zadorov's going to do. And I think the more interesting part was, I don't know if Jacob has the screenshot, the Instagram story post for Zadorov. The caption, "Get out of my DMs and go to the rink to cheer for your team." That and in all caps, that place was library tonight with a typo on library, but that's besides the point. And the screenshot of the DMs is just a ton of hate messages with a lot of words that I cannot say on the air right now. But I like having villains in the NHL. This is fun. Give me this personality. Zadorov is now public enemy number 1 for New York Islanders fans. And look, I don't like seeing him go after Matthew Schaefer like that, but I love I'm going to post a screenshot of all these hate DMs and I'm going to go after Islanders fans and just embrace the hate. Like, give me more of that personality in the NHL.
Nick Pocek said, I can hear that caption in his accent too. That place was library tonight.
The other thing too is all these hate DMs. I'm like, you would never say any of these things to Nikita Zadorov's face.
No kidding.
Some of the insults and some of the, I'll do this and this to you. Do Isles fans not realize how big Nikita Zadorov is? And hey, I get them being upset. They have every right to hate Nikita Zadorov. He went after Matthew Schaefer. But the hate DMs, some of the things you're saying as a keyboard warrior, come on. Zadorov would, you walk up to Zadorov on the street. First of all, no one would ever actually say those things. But if he did, just backhand swat you and you'd die, basically.
Like, this is the thing that people don't get about Zadorov. We talk about, like, Tyler Myers' height. We talk about that. But now take Tyler Myers' height, like a touch shorter than Tyler Myers. But then add all this weight and this muscle. Like, he's like so wide. He's so wide. And he's not fat, man. Like, he's not overweight. Like, the dude is built. He is a thick boy. Like, he is a big boy. People would not. Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah, so anyway, I understand why Isles fans are upset, but I always get a crack in general out of people being keyboard warriors on social media and in DMs.
Yeah. One of the DMs was from Jake DeBrusque Glazer and was written in Russian. Jacob just pointed that out in our private chat here. That's great. Okay, anything else that either of you wanted to get to today? Oh, last thing from me. I just want to close on this. I wrote a story at CanucksArmy.com. I'd appreciate it if everyone went and read it. J-Pat was at the rink this morning and asked Quinn Hughes and Brent McLean about 3-on-3 overtime. The Canucks are 4-0 in games that have gone past regulation. Last season, they lost 14 of those games. How many of those Yeah, 12 of them came during 3-on-3 overtime, and 2 of them came in the shootout. So I wanted to mention that they're 4-0 this year, and JPAT basically went in and was like, hey, you guys seem to have a different kind of strategy on possessing the puck, not shooting as much, and possessing the puck in 3-on-3 overtime, regrouping isn't anything new. But what does seem new this season, and I think was especially evident in that Nashville game, was like having a pretty decent look where most teams, including the Canucks of last year, would pull the trigger on a shot attempt, like looking off those chances and looping back and looking for an even better scenario. Really just looking for tap-ins, it really feels like, during overtime. Quinn Hughes spoke about it, Brett McLean spoke about it, and McLean specifically said they spent a lot of time on it this summer. The Sedins specifically spent a ton of time on it, and then they spent a couple days on it in training camp and had a big meeting with the players on just that subject of 3-on-3 overtime. Like I said, I wrote this in the article. You leave 14 points on the board, and I know there's some more nuance, and that's a very big oversimplification of like, if they just won half of those, if they turned half of those losses into wins, they'd make the playoffs. But it is also worth mentioning 14 extra time losses led the NHL last season.
Yeah, they've been managing the puck a little bit more carefully to reduce the number of odd man grade A chances against. I also think it simply helps having defensemen besides Quinn Hughes that you can trust, because remember last year when Vinny Desharnais was out in 3-on-3 OT at times? That was the thing. They had to rely on Vinny Desharnais in 3-on-3 overtime, especially when Filip Hronek got hurt and they didn't have a second defenseman. So I think just having extra options on the back end has obviously helped. So those are two things that come to mind for me with respect to their 3-on-3 OT results being a little bit better, and obviously them picking up a couple of extra points in the shootout as well.
All right. Anything from either of you before we close out today?
I think I'm good.
Cool.
Please, if you haven't, Family Feud survey we need. I just double checked. At the start of the show, it was 16 more. Now it's down to 15 more. So someone filled it out already. Thank you to whoever did that. We need more. If you're listening to the audio pod, good chance it's already full, but try anyways. You never know. And we will be playing Family Feud tomorrow in studio. Quads.
Hachiroku, Quads gushing again over 6'6" big boys. I like Nikita Zadorov. I said that from the start. Let's get to our Bet365 bet of the day. And yes, fill out the survey, folks. Appreciate it. All right. Utah Mammoth are playing the Toronto Maple Leafs tonight. We're a Utah Mammoth podcast. We like the Utah Mammoth on this show. We are taking their money line at plus 130 odds to beat the Maple Leafs at home. You can get that at Bet365, whatever your bet is. It's never ordinary at Bet365. Download the app and get on the game. Use the code NATION at Bet365. Must be 19 plus to play. If you choose to play, please play responsibly. We'll wrap it up there. For my co-host, Harm Dial, and our technical producer, Jacob Lazar, our thanks again to Dave Hall for joining today's show. My name is David Quadrelli. Thanks so much for this episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.